Hi there, my name's Gemma Channing, and first of all, I'd just like to apologise. I don't have my video on because my internet speed isn't very good, so it's better sound-wise if I have my video off. So my name is Gemma Channing, and I am the Health and Wellbeing Coordinator at the Beaney House of Art and Knowledge in Canterbury. And today I'm going to talk to you for a little while about wellbeing for schools in museums. So just a bit about us. So this is the Beaney. We are a museum, a gallery, a library, and a visitor information centre, all in one big, beautiful building in Canterbury in Kent. And we've had health and wellbeing is a huge part of our day-to-day museum activities. It's something that's been embedded in the museum since it reopened in 2012. In more recent years, we've been looking at how we can embed wellbeing across all of our activities. So rather than as an additional offer, that we also embed it in our learning, in our exhibitions, in our interpretation, and in everything that we do, it's a consideration. And that's my job, is to coordinate that. So what kind of wellbeing activities can you do at a museum? So a very popular activity is object handling. This is popular with all ages, and especially children, because children like to touch things, and generally in museums, it's somewhere where people get told not to touch things. So we like to get our handling collections out. Most museums will have a handling collection of some sort that are themed and relate to things that children are learning in school. So we've got Roman handling boxes, we've got ancient Greeks, we've got all sorts of stuff that children can hold and they can get up close to, and they can really get a feel for that period of history by getting close to these objects and being able to see them and feel them. We also do gallery visits, so taking children into the galleries to have a look at the objects in the cases, to have a look at the artworks on the walls, and to be in that space is a very different way of learning, and it's a nice place to run workshops. It feels very special for them to be able to have the galleries to themselves. Creative activities, so there's kind of infinite possibilities of creative activities that you can do inspired by the collections. So you can do, for example, with our Roman loan box, you can do some object handling of Roman pottery and then maybe do some clay activities related to that, or maybe you want to do some drawing inspired by the things that you've seen in the gallery. The possibilities really are endless and depend on what really you want the children to do and to get out of it. And you can exhibitions. So a lot more galleries and museums now are doing child-led exhibitions where children curate the shows and decide what artwork is going to be in there and what types of exhibitions we're going to have, so that they get more control, they get more of a say, and we get to see the outcome of that. So what are the wellbeing benefits of museum activities? So this varies from child to child, person to person, and depends on the activity. So here's just kind of an overview of some of the benefits. So increased confidence is a huge one. Being able to hold objects and look at things and be able to talk about them, to develop the language to talk about these items, could be a huge confidence boost. Improved mood. So there's a lot of research that engaging in museum activities can improve people's mood at all ages, reduce sort of reported rates of depression and anxiety as well. For children, it's especially good for building reflective skills and critical thinking skills, especially if we're asking sort of questions like, what do you think this object might be? What do you think it was used for? What do you think the people that used this object were like? It's really good at building those kind of reflective skills that they can then apply to other areas of their life, of their learning, and of their playing. It promotes inclusion because we're looking at lots of different ways of learning all taking place in the same space, and it's a really good space for children that like to be hands-on, the movers and shakers of the class, to be able to take up space, to be able to move around, and to work and learn alongside their peers that might learn in different ways. It's a space where they can all learn in their preferred way in the same space. It's an opportunity for them to put their learning into practice as well. So to take the history and the heritage from the book and put it into practice and give it some real life context. It's very good for developing social skills. So depending on what kind of activities you're doing, you're looking at children working together, problem solving together, coming up with new ideas together. And those are the kind of skills that are really going to benefit them in other areas of their life too. And it's a lovely opportunity for self-expression as well, especially if it's including creative activities or playing activities. It's and to be able to express yourself is a huge part of having good well-being. So what does good practice look like? So evidence-based. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in learning more about wellbeing in museums, reading the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance website. They've got some fabulous resources that really demonstrate the evidence for what kind of activities will support wellbeing. It's got to be relevant, so we need to know what is going on in our local areas, what are the health priorities in the communities and in the schools around us, and how can we create activities that meet that need, so that it's relevant, so that we're meeting a need. It's all about partnership working, so working with schools to kind of identify what their priorities are, working with different health organisations in the area. We also work with lots of different community groups because it's all about that joined up working. It's all about reaching people that might not normally access the museum. It might be easier to work with a community organisation to deliver workshops in that way. So a lot of partnership working. And start small. If it's something that you want to embed in your own work, I would definitely recommend starting small with a pilot project and use that as an opportunity to kind of reflect and to learn and what went well, what would you do differently next time, and build up from that. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to do the biggest, boldest project of all time straight away. It's for your own well-being, start small. In terms of measuring well-being in children, I just want to touch on this. I am in no way an expert measuring children's well-being, and there is a lot of different ways to do it. I'll talk about how we do it in a minute. But generally, what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's child-led, so it's something that they do for themselves, that they can talk about their own feelings and how they feel their well-being themselves, and it's not something that we are doing on behalf of them. It's something that we make part of the activity, so it's built into our workshops that we will measure children's well-being and ask them how they're doing. It's part of the workshop. It's not an add-on. It's not something separate. And most of all, we want it to be fun. We don't want it to be something that takes away too much of their time of learning and enjoying the museum. We want it to be something that is fun, that's going to make them feel good. So at the Beaney, we use visual analog scales with children. So a visual analog scale is basically a pictorial representation of how you feel. So these are commonly used in healthcare settings to measure pain. And you may have seen them in sort of retail environments where they ask, how was your service today? And you hit the smiley for how you feel. So on the yellow faces here, so we use a system like this. We have a color-coded face scale and of tokens, and when children come in, they can choose the smiley that best represents how they're feeling that day. We get the teachers to do it as well. And we do that at the start of the session, we do it at the end of the session. And we hope that through taking part in the activities and being in the museum, that everyone walks out feeling fantastic. That is our aim. And that we can show that being in the museum did have a positive impact on how they're feeling that day. I've also put up here the picture exchange communication system, some of the faces that they use. So picture exchange communication system, otherwise known as PECS, is widely used with children and adults that have communication difficulties or learning disabilities, or just a preference for communicating using this system. And it's very well recognized. So if you're working with those sorts of groups, I would recommend using these, so you can download them from the PECS website, because it's something that they're already familiar with. So you're not introducing a new concept. It's something that they're used to using. So there's just a few links here. So we've got, we made a health and wellbeing in museums toolkit, which is free to download. And that's pretty much a step-by-step guide to setting up wellbeing projects in museums. There's a link there to the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, which, by the way, is free to join. And then you'll get newsletters of the latest opportunities and funding and research. And there's a free e-learning course there as well, which is run by University College London, all about culture, health and wellbeing. It gives a really good kind of grounding in like the evidence, how to set up a group, how to measure it, all the kind of everything you'd need, really. So that's all for me for now. Lovely. Thank you for listening.